Hi, here are some thoughts from 1 Kings chapter 18 and chapter 19. So there's this biblical character named Elijah who's got some really cool stories. We named our son Elijah because of how cool these stories were. So anytime you want to, just go read about Elijah. So he's going through some ups and downs right here. We all go through ups and downs in our lives, and this exceptional man of God is no stranger to that. So in chapter 18, he goes to this mountain, Mount Carmel, and there's 850 prophets there, false prophets, not prophets of God. And he challenges them. He says, if your gods are the real ones, then let them come fire up this sacrifice. He says, but if our God is the real God, then he will do this. And they go into this big ordeal, and they slash themselves with swords, crying out to their God. Elijah kind of humors them a little bit while they're doing that, if you read it to see what he's talking about. But nothing happens. And then he has a sacrifice, and he says, douse it with water. That's fine. They're like, what? So no, that's not enough. Douse it with water. This thing is just dripping. He calls on, so they've been calling to God all day long. They're gods. He calls to God one time, and our awesome God shoots down furious fire that licks up this water, just laps everything up. And all these people who were not following God, who Elijah came to confront, not the false prophets, but the people of God who were straddling the fence. They were leaning towards the false prophets, though they had known the way of God. They fall down on their faces. They say, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. And Elijah says, kill them all. And so they take all the lives of those false prophets. And so Elijah just had the most amazing victory. One man of God coming against 850 men of false gods, letting our God obliterate them. And he is the prophet that God worked through to do this. So he had such a tremendous victory when he did that. He was confident, he was strengthened, he was felicitous, happy, exuberant, and he's up here on the mountain. He's fearless. All these men with all these swords could dice him to pieces. But he is fearless because he's trusting in the power of God to manifest it to the people, to show them who the true God is. But then you go to the next chapter, right after all of this, chapter 19, and he's not so glad anymore. Elijah finds himself down in a valley. So there were these 850 men with all these spears and swords who could have cut him to pieces. But that didn't shake him. But look at chapter 19, verse 2. What is shaking him? A woman? A woman? Really? This woman, Jezebel, sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow about this time. What she means is, I'm going to kill you. This is a death threat. And so this man who is not shaken by all these men with their swords, he's shaken by one woman who didn't even come to him personally, who sent a messenger with a little line for him to read. And he is scared out of his wits. He then goes under a broom tree. I guess he cries his little eyes out to God, says, I'm no better than any of the fathers. Just kill me. If this is how it's going to be, just kill me. I've been working for you. Oh, I've been zealous for you, Lord. So please, don't let it end like this for me. So he's scared to death of this woman. He's now forlorn instead of the felicity that he first had. Why is everything changing? Well, in 18, it's clear he was focused on God. Looking up the mountain, facing the prophets, fixated on God's power. He's down here, he's worn out, he's lost enthusiasm. He's out of touch with God's people. He's got no fellowship going on. He thinks he's the only one serving God. But God tells him, no, that's not the case. I've got more people right here ready to serve me. And so he went on that high mountain, crashed down to this low valley, because he took his focus off of God, started thinking about how weary he was, thinking about how much he had done for God, telling God how zealous he had been for them, and then just wanting to give up, just wanting to take a nap, just wanting to go to rest. And that's fine. We all get wearied and fatigued like that. But what did God tell him? Well, he went to rest, he took a nap. And so this angel comes and strikes him and wakes him up. He's like, what? And he's like, okay, you need to eat some food. You need to eat some food. And so Elijah's obviously tired because he eats this little cake and he drinks some water. And he goes right back to bed again. And then the angel smacks him again. He's like, what are you doing? You need to get up. You don't have enough in you. You don't have enough strength to do this journey. God's still got work for you to do. And so he gets up and he takes that journey off of this 2 little cakes and some water. He goes for 40 days and 40 nights till he reaches Mount Horeb or something like that. And then he goes there, and he goes to take a nap again, and God says, hey, come out of the cave. And this is that amazing story where wind tears through the rocks, then an earthquake erupts, and then fire comes out. But it says none of that's God. And then Elijah's back in the cave. He hears this small, still voice. And so he just saw this furious fire, these shattering earthquakes and winds. But this little small voice causes Elijah to cover his face with his mantle and come out there. Why did he do that? Because he understood that was the voice of God. He knew the terror and power of God. But God still, showing his weight and majesty ripping through the mountains, shows just tenderness to Elijah. He refreshes him when he's down. He gives him food and drink. He reveals himself to Elijah when he's down. He says, take a fresh look at my word. Take a fresh look at my power. I need you to keep going because you're still in my army. I've still got some tasks. I need you to go anoint a king. I need you to go do some things for me. Don't forget that I'm with you. What's Jezebel really going to do to you, Elijah? And just like for us, if she does in fact kill you when you're working for me, she can't do anything to your soul, so keep going. And so it's like that for us. If we get down, sometimes we wallow in self-pity. Sometimes we get distracted, just like Elijah was. I'm the only servant left for you, God. I'm the only one doing anything for you, God. But we shouldn't ever take that kind of attitude with God, because God is there to refresh us. He's there to revisit us, reinstill us in his word, and give us encouragement to keep going. So let us have a brief prayer about this, please. Almighty King, we thank you for the awesome display of your glory in the days of Elijah, when those rocks were lapped up by your fire from heaven, God. And so thank you for your encouragement to us through Elijah, for the times when we get down, when we just feel physically fatigued, mentally exhausted, physically drained, emotionally challenged, and not knowing what to do, just completely flummoxed and fearful, God, that you would be our God to refresh us, that we would be your people, trusting in your word and seeking it afresh, that you may reveal yourself to us and encourage us to keep going. For we're all still, by your kindness and grace constantly given to us, in your army, still here to do any task that you would refresh us to. So may it be your glory and awesome kindness to gently keep your people going, to encourage us through your words and through fellowship with one another. In Christ's majesty we praise you, O Father. Amen.